The customer base for the Malibu, in particular this segment, is very particular. They're particular about their functions, and one of the challenges we've had with this vehicle is getting function and form to be exactly what we needed to meet the needs of that customer base, but to attract and keep attention with this heated segment. With a lot of entries in here, we needed to make ourselves stand out. And function and form aren't always mutually exclusive, or they are mutually exclusive. A lot of times they're mutually exclusive, right? So people will ask for a 12 miles of headroom, but that's going to give us a big upper car, which is going to look relatively goofy. So we took a lot of time to balance the interior spaciousness and functionality that the customers expects, not to take anything away from them. And so that they can use their vehicle, function with their vehicle like they do every day, interact with their vehicle, which is why they love these cars, right? But make the outside of it hot, right? To satisfy both needs. We've lowered the car a little bit. We've stretched it. We've extended the wheelbase 4 inches from the previous one, which is really the biggest change, both functionally and stylistically. That change allows us to get more room in the back. About, I'd say, an inch more knee room. Really makes the rear space very comfortable to be in. It opened up the aperture to help entry egress. It added more dash to axle, and that's a term we like to have in the front fender, which it takes that front wheel and pushes it away from people, and it really helps settle the whole vehicle down. That wheelbase also allowed us to stretch the upper, so we're lengthening the car. We're making the car more graceful in the process, and I think the forms that we developed, very taut, muscular, lean forms, really help enable that look and help emphasize those proportions. If you look at today's car versus the old car, today's car does seem a bit bigger. The car itself is smaller, but the looks of it seem bigger. This car, even though it is longer and a little bit wider, it doesn't seem as large, although it provides the same amount of space on the inside, right? If not more, for the front and rear occupants. And it really has a road presence about it that all those proportions really help enable. It pulls inspiration from the fact that both vehicles want to be expressive, right? Chevrolet as a brand wants to be synonymous with being expressive. From Corvettes to Camaros to trucks to passenger cars. It's something that we want expressive and Chevrolet to be synonymous with each other. It pulls cues, although they're not the same. I like to say that they're within the same family, but they don't look the same. It's definitely not a Russian doll approach. It takes some very interesting cues like the longitudinal grille. It takes the wheel-oriented forms, and because the brand character is sort of a living document, it incorporates them in a new and fresh, creative way. So there's still some similarities between the two of them without them being carbon copies of each other. The 2016 Malibu draws inspiration from lots of places. I think most importantly, it wanted to fit in with what the Impala had already set forth. The current Impala had already set forth, and that's being an expressive entry into the passenger car market. Neither of the vehicles, the Impala or the Malibu, look identical, but I think it's pretty clear and pretty obvious that they exist within the same family. Much like both my boys don't look the same, but you can tell where they're from. The Malibu and the Impala are very similar with that, both with the longitudinal front grills, with the wheel-oriented forms, and with the expressive, dramatic form philosophy that's cascaded down the body side. I think the goals for this 2016 Malibu was to find a beautiful marriage between functionality and form, and not make them mutually exclusive endeavors. A balance had to be struck to keep the vehicle as the customers saw it and how they use their vehicle, and still make the vehicle extremely beautiful and extremely interesting from an outside standpoint. The goals for the 2016 Malibu was essentially to have our cake and eat it too. We wanted all of the function in the prior vehicle, with adding to it, advancing it, making it that much better, making it appropriate for the expectations of the customer today, and wrapping it in a beautiful, mature, exciting exterior to hold their attention and keep them there. I would describe the exterior of the 2016 Malibu as beautiful, I would describe it as assertive. I would describe it as mature. I would describe it as sporty, but not boy racer. So the presence, the road presence it has is like nothing else that we've achieved. Some of the design features that I like to point out really have to do with the proportions of the vehicle and what the proportions enable. The cowl is a lot lower than today's. It took a lot of mass out from above the front wheel, right? So as all designers, we want to have the biggest wheels possible. There's a point of diminishing returns when you get wheels too large. So that wasn't achievable, but the next best thing is to take the body down around the wheels, reduce the mass. So reducing the mass by 300 pounds also shows up visually, right, in the amount of surface around the wheels. By reducing that surface and breaking up that surfaces to gather lights and darks better or differently, all the wheels are going to look big, right? Not just the 18s and the 19s. One of the ways that the 2016 Malibu draws inspiration from the 2014 Impala is that the Impala embarked Chevrolet's passenger cars on this dramatic, expressive endeavor. It set the bar very high from how we looked at cars, how we expected the cars to interact with its consumer. And the 2016 Malibu, although not looking exactly the same, definitely part of the same family, carrying some similar cues, I think is a very contemporary, modern approach to that type of philosophy. The proportions reinforce it. The functionality on the inside reinforces it. The assertive stance that it has reinforces the technology embedded within just the exterior to enable some of those proportions also reinforce that. So in all aspects of the vehicle, it reinforces its mainstay within the Chevrolet brand.